Hey, this is Kia with Kia channel, and welcome to my channel. I'm going to be breaking down the movie Us, and hopefully I'm bringing you something that you haven't heard before. I know there's so many breakdowns of this movie, but I did write a story a few years ago about this doppelganger who was tethered to someone else. So I just wanted to bring my perspective, and I thought that it would be semi-unique and different, so that's why I'm covering this movie. Now, this movie, I wanted to see it by myself, but all of my family and friends know how scary I am. So they're like, no, you definitely can't watch it by yourself. But after I saw the movie, I could have watched this movie by myself, and I would have watched it the first time it came out, and I wouldn't have waited almost a month later to be doing a review. But the character on the screen right now, the daughter, she was really scary. I don't know why she scared me so much. It could have been that evil grin, but she really spooked me out. But I didn't have any bad dreams or anything, so that's a good thing. So anyway, there will be spoilers in this review. I just feel like I have to say that, even though this movie has been out for a while and most people have seen it, but definitely there will be spoilers. One theme that I noticed in this movie right off the bat was don't slip. Always be on your P's and Q's, because when somebody catches you slipping, there's always going to be somebody underneath you that is trying to get your spot. And unless you have a high level of privilege, but if you're like a middle class person, then you're a dime a dozen, really. If you're like a Beyonce, of course, even she has to maintain her position and make sure nobody is going to knock her off, because in America, we're always trying to knock the next person off. So the little girl, Adelaide's character in the beginning, if you remember, she was very quiet. She didn't speak very much to her parents at all. When her father asked her what shirt she wanted, she just pointed. I don't even think she spoke any words. So it was very spooky art from the beginning. And when she kind of wandered off by herself, it was kind of like she's just walking. She's paying attention to her surroundings, but she's kind of just, in her own world. So when she got into the House of Mirrors, and she was confronted by her doppelganger, the doppelganger was able to overtake her, because the original character was somewhat a little bit weak. And I'm not sure why. I know it had to progress the story because the doppelganger had to take her over. But what caused that little girl to be weak at the beginning, I'm not sure. So the first doppelganger that was able to overtake the original person that was above ground was the doppelganger that had Jeremiah 11:11 written on his forehead. And that verse in the Bible is talking to the children of Israel. And these children were favored. They were God's chosen people. And however, during that time, they kind of lost faith. They stopped following his commandments, and they were basically punished because they did not keep the commandments. And the punishment was, of course, severe. So in the movie, the punishment is death. So that is very appropriate that the person who had that verse written on his forehead is the one who started this revolution. I think this is also important too, because there is some type of veil that had to be broken in order for the people underneath the earth or under the ground to come up above the ground. And how did this person untether themselves to be able to get above ground? I'm not sure. How did Adelaide do that when she was 6 years old? The doppelganger of Adelaide do that? I'm not sure. But the Adelaide's son, who is half doppelganger, half above ground privileged person, he saw this person, and he was the first one person to really kind of take notice of him. And this picture on the screen right now is important because we're looking at the back of them. So later on in the movie, when this little boy draws a picture, he draws the picture in this way of looking at the back of these two people. So that leads me to believe that the little boy was actually overtaken, or somehow, I'm not exactly sure how they're going to bring that back out later, but that he was overtaken by his doppelganger at some point. So the little boy that was a tethered child that came in the red jumpsuit, when they were playing in the closet, he took his mask off and revealed his face. And it so happened that he's burned on his mouth, and it's making it so that he can't speak. So this, I was wondering what significance this had. I know the little boy had a fascination with fire, and they were both, what happens above ground has to also happen. They have to imitate that below ground. So there was some type of almost burning the house down situation. Not sure, but maybe this little boy had to burn his own face. Or it could be that this is the original person that was born above ground, and that now that his face is burned and he can't speak, he's unable to communicate that. That theory has some holes in it, I know, but it just got me to wondering, because the little boy, there was always just something a little bit different and off about him. He always had like more of a knowing than any of the other people. I felt like he knew exactly what his mother Adelaide was, or who she was. So I just wondered what kind of connection that had, or that will play. In the movie, they explicitly said that there could only be one. And I think that was just more so a thought of the character and not so much reality of what was actually going on in the universe of this movie. So the idea that there has to be someone below ground in order to allow the people above ground to live their lives. Why is that? That was not actually a reality. That was just more of a thought. It was more so of a thought because you don't want to buck the system. You don't want to change the system. You just want to change your position in the system. So the doppelganger of Adelaide, she didn't care that she was going to make someone suffer the way she did. All she cared is that she was no longer suffering. So it was more of a very individualistic mindset. And because she had that, then her counterpart was more of a community minded. Let's all get together and let's all go above and do this as a group. So maybe that's what it was, because there has to be a balance. There has to be an individual minded person, and to counterbalance that, there has to be like a more community minded person. But there was really nothing that says, that they could not have both gone to the surface. If that happened, what would have happened to all the other people below ground? They probably would have been able to come above ground. And that would have meant that there were fewer resources for the people above ground. But the people above ground really had a lot of privileges. They had a lot of extra things. They had 2 houses, for gosh sake. They had their summer house and they had their regular house. So they could have easily shared their wealth. And it really got me thinking about how we in the Black community say that certain Black people that move up, that they're sellouts. Because when they do move up, even though people in the community supported them, people in the community maybe even suffered so that they can get ahead. But once that person gets ahead, sometimes they don't turn back. They don't try to help the next person. They don't try. They're just thinking, okay, I made it. Sorry for you. Maybe you can try harder. They kind of become the elites, even though they grew up in this environment. They kind of forget that and they move on, and they kind of just accept it. Like, okay, I don't want to change the system too much. I just want to change my position in the system. So that's the definition of what a sellout is all about, because she could have been that person to break this cycle that was happening. So in my book, the doppelganger of the main character, she wasn't imitating the main character. she didn't even really know that person existed either. It was more so like she just was in her environment and things happened and she didn't really know why. But when she did meet her, she started to put pieces together and say, oh wow, this is why, when you were able to accomplish this, I was suffering this way. So it was more so like having a equal and opposite reaction to something that was going on in the universe. So when something happens here, something happens on the other side to balance it. So when somebody has extreme privilege, there has to be some extreme poverty and somewhere in the world to balance that. And it just so happens that in real life in America, in the world, the extremely wealthy are just 1%, but the poor, and I guess we're kind of counting the middle class and that 99%. So I would have to actually look and see what the extreme poor, what numbers are those. And I would say it was probably at least 20%. I think most people are in the middle and are able to, find food. But there are some extreme poor people. But we really don't have to have this. The rich people can take the poor with them, can't they? Or does it have to be, and this is a question, does it have to be this balancing? Life is mayat. Life is about balance. And balance isn't not always, positive. There's a spectrum. So there's somebody who's very, very intelligent, and then there's people who are severely delayed. So this is the common theme that we continue to see in the world. There's like this bell curve. There's some people at the top and people at the bottom, and there's a whole bunch of people in the middle. But it kind of makes this curve, this bell curve, that's equal on both sides for the most part. So is that necessary? Or can people at the extremes, can they offer more? Can they give up more? Or if they do, will there be, how would that look? If these people offered more and made more rich people, then in return, will that increase the number of poor people? So a girl on roller skates pushes a ball, and that ball pushes back on her. So she, in return, that force makes her go backwards. But if she has some friction stopping her from moving, then she can push on the ball, and that force is not enough to push her back because she is stable. That's like the law. That's Newton's law of motion, one of the laws. So of course that is talking about physical things. It's not talking about social things, as what type of friction would keep the rich while other people are able to move up. And I believe as time goes on, we have more millionaires and more affluent people than we've had in the past. So that could be, technology and just the way the world is going and getting people closer together, because access really is one of the major components of how someone is able to acquire wealth. So once you have something, and the more and more people who are able to get to it, that will make your product, that's how kind of it is in capitalism. You want your product to be the chosen one, or your service to be the chosen one. So technology has definitely made it possible for more people to get access to things and get customers and that sort of thing. So just a thought. Anyway, I really enjoyed the movie. Jordan Peele did an excellent job, and I'm going to be I'm inspired, I think, again, to finish the follow-up to my story, my debut that I did in 2015, The Voyager's Pursuit, available on Amazon. So yeah, definitely enjoy this movie. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget to click subscribe, leave me a comment, like the video, and let me know if you have any suggestions on the videos you'd like me to do. Thank you so much. I'm out. Peace.